Hello, welcome to Math for All, where we try to make math creative, curious, and inclusive for everyone. I'm Molly Vokey.
And I'm Heidi Subnani. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on the last show of season 5.
I cannot even, first of all, I can't even believe we're season 5 and now season 5 is over, which is what
I know
is happening with time. But also, like, what a cool season this has been.
It's been amazing, and we are wrapping it up in style. So we'll get to that in a moment. But if you would like to know when season 6 starts, you can follow along on Blue Sky or on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. If you follow at any of those spaces, it'll alert you to when another amazing educator is on, and we're having fantastic conversations.
Yes. And you can also, if you are interested in Math Activators, this is our book that's out with Didex. It specifically works on activators with fractions, decimals, and integers, which is often a tough topic for kiddos. So a quick way to get in a little bit of intervention stuff with kids right before you start your math class. And you also can find us at our website. But we are going to be closing out the season with this very long question, and it kind of does sum up the season, don't you think? Actually, and she wouldn't have known really that she was being a good summarizer. So how do the beliefs that teachers and students bring to math class shape what actually happens there, and what can we do to change them? So that's super cool. We're going to be hearing from Pam Brett today. So let's hear about her before we talk to her. Pam Brett is a math education consultant and host of Blue Glasses Math, a weekly podcast for K-8 math educators. With 25 plus years of experience and a doctorate in mathematics education from Rutgers University, Pam helps teachers restore their beliefs so every student can see themselves as a math person. Her work blends research on affected math learning with practical classroom-ready strategies. So let's bring her in. Hello. Welcome.
Hi, Molly. Hi, Heidi. I'm so excited to see you.
Yes, we are as well. And we have actually met in real life, which is sometimes not always the case. So that's perfect. We were able to hear you speak at NCSM, and we had been wanting to have you on. So we're so excited about this.
So fun. And I really appreciate the invitation. Amazing.
Yeah. We always love to start with, what is your math story? So if people don't know you, they get to know you a little bit more.
Oh, so good. Okay. What is my math story? So, do you want me to start in a particular place or just?
No, but you're so used to asking this question. So on the other end, it must feel weird.
It does feel really weird. And I think to roll with the theme of this particular conversation tonight is I'm going to talk about my math story in the context of me as a math teacher. Okay. So I had already been teaching probably about 8 years. I taught in 2 different schools, and now I was coming to a new school to teach 8th grade math. So I had been teaching, my first job, I taught grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they were advanced math in a parochial school in a very fancy town. And so, there were a lot of kids in my advanced math class.
Yep.
I'm using air quotes there.
Yep.
But I was fresh out of college, so, I didn't know any better. And then I moved to a different school, taught 6th grade. And now the math story that I'm going to talk about tonight is that I started teaching 8th grade math. And I thought, all right, I already know how to do this, right? I'm now in my 8th or 9th year of teaching. I've done the thing. I know the math. I feel really confident about how kids learn math. And as I was setting up my classroom, my colleagues would come by my classroom and they'd say, oh, just buckle up, because this is the worst group that's ever come through this school. As a matter of fact, when I signed my contract, I didn't know what grade I was signing my contract for. And I think that was intentional because I think the admin was like, we're not going to even tell her until she can't turn around and say no. So I started teaching these 8th graders. Sure enough, they were, in a way, living up to the reputation that I had been told. The behaviors, the, disengagement. And I really was struggling. I was really struggling because at the same time, I was in graduate school. And I was taking a class called Intro to Math Education, which was a requirement. But I'm like, I already know how to teach math. It's kind of like the athlete who doesn't think they need a coach, and I'm like, but I was learning so much in this class and I was having such an amazing time. This is a while back, and they were like rich tasks, low floor, high ceiling. This is like the first place where I was really learning the names for the things that I had been doing in the classes that I had been teaching before. Okay. So I'm going through the motions with this class. I'm loving every math problem that we're doing in class at night after teaching a full day. And then a couple weeks into the semester, I start hearing my peers in that class say, I tried this with my 6th graders and it was amazing. And I tried this with my 7th graders and it was amazing. And inside I had this shame storm going on because I had to rewind a little bit. The district that had hired me had just bought a whole stack of beautiful, I call them the shiny red textbooks. This is my shiny red textbook story. And they were like the typical story, the typical math book where you open it up and there's like 40 problems on one page and like maybe 10 word problems on the other.
I'm familiar with this.
You know the ones. You know the ones. Yes. So they were still in the shrink wrap when I got the key to my classroom. So, I was the very first one who was cracking these open. And this is what I was teaching from. Meanwhile, I'm in grad school, and this is completely the opposite of what we were doing in grad school. Listening to my peers say, oh, this is amazing. It's changing the way my kids are seeing themselves as math people and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, I can't even get these kids to like be quiet for 1 second so I can just explain to them what to do. But I had gotten to the point where the only way I could get them to kind of like quiet and settle was like open the book to page 14, open your notebook, and they wanted to just copy what I was telling them to do. But I was dying inside because I'm like, this is not how I think math should be taught. It didn't jive with my beliefs about what teaching and learning math is really all about. So after class one night, I stayed and talked to my professor, and I said, I know you have good intentions here, and I hear you, and I love all these tasks, but I don't think these kids can do it. And those words actually came out of my mouth. Mm-hmm. And she said to me, and I still get chills every time I tell this story. She said, if you don't believe in them, who will? And I was like, okay, game on. So this is when the real fun happened. So I went back to class the next day. I took those shiny red textbooks, I collected them, and I put them on the shelves, and I'm like, we're done. And it wasn't because I didn't believe the students could do the math in those textbooks. It was, they weren't really learning math from just going page by page. So I started asking them questions about I started bringing in the low floor, high ceiling questions. And that's when the real resistance happened, because then if I thought they were resisting before, now they were really resisting. Yeah. So I walked down.
What expectation of thinking? That was a problem.
They were like, they didn't understand why I kept asking them why and how do you know? And can you convince me? And all these questions that I really was curious about, but also as learning in grad school, you should be asking these types of questions. And so I walked down to the main office one day to get my mailbox at lunchtime, and a large group of my students were in the main office, and they're all talking to the principal, and they seemed pretty angry. So of course I was curious. I walked in and I said, what's going on? And the principal peeked over their heads and he said, oh, here's Mrs. Brett right now. Why don't you tell her what you told me? And they said, you don't know the math because you keep asking us why, and you keep asking us how to do it. And I'm like, what? And so the principal was so thrilled because these students had never been asked. They had not been asked. The reason why they were I don't want to say the worst group is because their voices had never been heard. Mm-hmm. Right. And so they were only just being honest with their disengagement and their behaviors and all of this. But the behaviors really got almost a little bit worse for a moment, and then it settled because then they started realizing I wasn't going to give up. And thank goodness I had that
Mm.
professor, Dr. Alice Alston at Rutgers, who just really pushed me to just stick with them. And then after that, I was actually in the master's program, and then I ended up going for my doctorate in my EDD in math education because of those students. Because I'm like, now I need to know more. So that's my math story. So the reason why I got my degree was not because I really didn't ever think who am I to get a doctorate in math education, but I was so curious and I kept learning more and more, and yeah, the rest is history. And those students, and people always ask, like, what's the end of the story? Like,
yeah.
And I very rarely talk about test scores, but we had a significant increase to the point where the same principal called me down to the main office. This is when the standardized tests were written. The students would have like the back of the page, the back of the book, and they would have. He called me down to the main office on test day after he'd collected all the tests, and he said, "Shut the door." And I was like, "What did I do?" And he said, "The state is going to come after us." I'm like, "What?" He said, "Because no class has ever written anything in these books. They're usually blank." He's like, "How did you get them to do this?" And I'm like, "I didn't get them to do it. It was just because it was like rinse and repeat. I kept, I didn't give up on them." And yeah, but I just saw one of those students just the other day. He was walking into the barber shop, and when I tell you the hug that this man, now he's this giant man, gave me, I was like, he saw me and he's like, "Are you still teaching math?" And I'm like, "Well,
kinda.
Yes.
Now, yes." I'm like, and he's like, "Oh," and I think he gave me like 4 hugs. Like he just kept hugging me. And I'm thinking, okay, so clearly something stuck with that kid, right?
Right. But I think, it must be you believed in them.
Yeah, I had to. I had
as simple as that, which I guess is not always so simple.
Yeah, it's like it sounds simple to believe, but it would have been way easier for me. It would have been way easier for me to just keep turning to page 15 and 16 and 17. It really would have been easier for me. But in my soul, it's not what would have been aligned. And I probably would have been, even though it would have been like physically easier, cognitively easier, maybe it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't emotionally, exactly.
Right. Like you have a feeling about the work that you're doing. Like, everyone does, right? Most people want to do a good job. No one sets out to do a bad job.
Right.
Maybe some people do, but I don't think that's the, I think a bad job turns out when you don't believe in yourself, or somebody else doesn't believe in you, or, you're feeling bad about the work for one reason or another. I think most people do go out to make a difference, right?
Yeah. And I think that was the point. And I actually also tried to quit. So I don't remember.
That didn't work out.
That happened first. That happened before that they tried to get me fired. And I called my mom one day crying, and I'm like, I've made a big mistake. I've made a big mistake. I can't get through to these kids. Like, they're just not listening. They don't want to hear anything. They're angry. They're yelling at me. Like, it was bad. It was like one of those movies you see about teachers in LA. Like that's my memory of it, at least. To the point where the superintendent stopped by one day during my prep, and he was a smart guy, and he said, "What do you need?" Because they knew that I was like 1 foot out the door. And I said, "I need a set of graphing calculators and a bigger classroom." He's like, "Done." So the next day the next week I had the graphing calculators, because students were using dollar store calculators.
Yeah.
That's what they'd been given before. Nobody had advocated for these kids before. And because
not in 8th grade do anything with that calculator.
Right. Yeah. So I had a nice first set of TIs, and then my colleague Melissa, who is still my friend to this day, she and I swapped classrooms because she had way less. Her classroom sizes were way smaller than mine, and so once the students had a little bit more space to move around, and it wasn't like I needed more space for me. It was just they were giant, right? And they were on top of one another. So once they had a little more physical space, and once they knew, I think this is a part that like leans into like my question, is once they knew that I was not going to let them just dial it in, it became easier but still, it was still hard. So like I tell this story because I'm like, I didn't start to see that it was actually making a difference probably until about January, where I was like, okay, they're waking up. They're with me. They're getting it. But it's like when you plant, I just read a book to a group of teachers just the other week at a PD. It's called The Carrot Seed. And it's about this little boy who plants a seed. It's like 8 pages long. But the little boy plants a seed and everybody around him says, it's not going to come up. You can water it all you want, but nothing's going to happen. And his mother, his father, his brother, and yet he kept tending to that seed. Yep. And that's kind of, I read that book was written in 1945. I read that book. When I first saw it, I think I was with my kids in the library one day. I'm like, this is what I did with my 8th graders.
Yep.
And this is what every teacher does, right? It's just the question is, how do you tune out the noise? Because there was noise. It was also like, the art teacher saying, what are you doing here? You could go get a job somewhere else. My colleagues are saying, you know what, don't worry. They'll just graduate and you'll get a better crop of kids next year. And I was like, I'm not willing to buy into that. So, yeah. So that is a very long math story that started when I already was teaching.
No, I like that story. I think that, it does lead right into your question, right? And it also leads into like the entire reason why people go into teaching, I think.
Yes.
If you're not feeling that at some point in your career,
right?
Yeah. Even if it's just about one kid or one class or, there's always that moment for every teacher at some point, and if not many, many times.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what it took for me, and I think this is something that is true for many people, is that I had this belief, right? And I believe that all students, I think of it as a cycle, right? So I believe that all students can think and reason mathematically. And this is before the standards for mathematical practice. This is the practice standards were out, but this is before Common Core. But I believe that all students needed to have a chance to think and reason, which is probably why I actually went to my professor, because I think I wanted her to I think I wanted her to push me, because I'm not the kind of person who just gives up on things. Because otherwise I could have just been quiet and just gone through the motions or whatever, but that's just not in my character. And so so I had this belief, right? The students can think and reason. And then my thought process from that is like, okay, I am going to, not give up on these kids. And then there's the third part for me is the action, right? So taking some type of action, some deliberate action in the classroom. It could be a micro action. It could be like your math activators, right? I haven't read your book, but when you were talking about it earlier, I was like, oh yeah. So, the micro action that takes place, or it could be a larger action, and then that leads to some type of result, right? So you could think of the belief cycle in a sort of a negative viewpoint too. I could say, I don't believe in these students. I think I'm just going to dial it in. The action I'm going to take is, let's just turn to page 16. The result will be students will just think that math comes out of a textbook. And then that will just reinforce the belief, right? There's lots of different ways you can talk about it, but I think that if we get out of our own heads and think, okay, at the core, why am I here in this classroom? Why am I here? And what did I step across this classroom threshold for? Most likely, it's not just because I want to have a job or get a paycheck. It's because there's something in me, a fire in me, that's making me want to make a difference.
Right.
Yeah. And then you were teaching 8th graders who had heard probably a lot of stories that they either heard from others or that they told themselves about their math abilities and whether math was for them or not. Or, there's by the time students are in 8th grade here in the US, they're often tracked into some form of high or low, whatever, language we want to use around that, that really solidifies belief systems around abilities and access. And so that's just, one of those systemic things that we bake into our school system.
So true.
Yeah. Colonial times are over, people.
Right?
Yikes.
So true. But, the idea, Heidi, you're talking about like how beliefs get solidified, and you're right. Like, so my whole research ever since I started grad school was about the affective interactions. Like affect is like the emotional interactions, right? It's the attitudes, beliefs, emotions, and values, right? There's like four different. So, and so in there, like emotions are very volatile, right? So emotions are like, they come and go, right? Depends on whether, the kid's wearing too much cologne or, or it starts snowing. I mean, like these are things that they come and go. Beliefs are a little bit more, like you said, solidified, but they still can be like rattled a little bit if you will, right? So there was a word, I just have to look real quick because there was a word that I heard today and I was like, oh my gosh, this makes no sense. Okay. So I see it as like an iterative negotiation. So you're constantly negotiating. It's iterating, like it's going around, right? So like your belief might start with like kind of this yucky, like not so hot, happy belief, but somewhere along, even if there's like a little action inside that cycle, it can kick you right out of it and be like, oh, maybe I can answer this question. Maybe I can write a sentence. Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, how many stories have you heard on your podcast alone that are just with adults? Endless. Right? Not even considering any kids' stories, but listening to the moment in time when something changed.
Yeah.
And often it's bad. Often the change is for the bad. Sometimes it's good. But it's a moment. And they remember it no matter how old they are.
Which is the craziest part,
right?
I can talk to an 80-year-old and they can still tell me something that happened in math class.
Yes, and they'll name the teacher. They'll be able to say what that teacher was wearing. Like, it's very poignant. It's a
core memory.
To you.
Yeah, it's a core memory
yes.
that has influenced for good or bad, right? Like, so and unless we have these moments where we bump up against someone who like forces us to look at that belief or an experience that does that, we get stuck in those cycles because, it's not like just vibes, right? It's like, oh, I just said it is like, it becomes who you are versus being influenced by what is around you so much.
But even for me, like, I'm thinking of your story, right? The kids all go down to the principal and they're like, she doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't even know the math because she keeps asking us to do it. Like, their belief was that you're supposed to stand in front of the room and show them how to do it.
Right.
So the fact that you weren't doing that told them a story.
Yes.
That wasn't true.
Correct.
And if you hadn't corrected that story, they would have thought that forever.
Yes.
And you would have been forgotten.
Yes.
And there would have been no 4 hugs for you.
No 4 hugs. No 4 hugs for Pam. No, but also, like, if you think about it, there was a reason why I walked into the main office in that moment. I mean, I could have very well been on the phone with a parent or be like up in the teacher's room with my colleagues. Who knows? But there was a reason why I stepped into that main office and saw the smile on my principal's face, because that was all I needed to see, because he was like, Mrs. Brett is doing her job. And the kids were like, like they do that teeth sucking thing. I'm like, like, all right. I'm like, oh, here we go. Buckle up, but I had the backing of the principal. I had the backing of the superintendent. I had the backing of my colleagues who were literally like opening the classroom door and be like, what is going on in there? And I'm like, listen, I just got to shut the door and do my thing and let them do their thing. Even if that means, it was like one day where I had these 2 very spicy twin girls in my class, in one class. They were in the same class together. And one said the answer is 75/100. The other one said the answer is 3/4. And they were screaming at each other. And I remember like the attitude and they were like throwing their hands. And the superintendent walked by. And so of course he comes in because he can hear like the raised voices. And he stood there and he just kind of like leaned against the wall and like with his arms like this. And he's like, and then in the moment they realized, oh my God, one of the other kids, I think it was one of the other kids said, "You're saying the same thing." And they were like, and it was like, and I remember the superintendent, the look on his face, he was like, yep. And I'm like, and that's where like discourse was really starting to become like these kids have never been. So when we ask this question, when the question, how do the beliefs that teachers, students bring shape what actually happens there? Oh my gosh. I mean, we could talk for 4 hours about this, but because to your point, Molly, like, is it beliefs about math? Is it beliefs about themselves? Is it beliefs about what the other person should be doing? And it was all of that, right? Like,
It's a tangled web though, too, right? Because even going back to what Heidi said, like how many messages kids have received by the time they've gotten to 8th grade.
100%. 100%.
Not to mention that 8th grade is just tough.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the math topics are tough.
Yeah.
They're not real life for kids. It's tough. And, 8th grade kids are just tough in general, I think. I mean,
they're ready to move on. They're ready for high school. They're like, they're over it,
So what are some things that we can do to change beliefs?
Okay. Well, that's a great question. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to say is actually not even a math move. It's just you got to believe in yourself, right? You got to like dig deep and be like, okay, what am I doing this for? And it doesn't mean you have to like go meditate on it or like sit and like whatever. It's just like, just be honest with yourself. Like, what am I here for? Right? So that's the first thing. Surround yourself with a network of people, right? Whether it be that grad school professor, or the teacher next door, and also know who the weeds are and stay away from them. There's a saying that's like the 5 people you surround yourself with or something like that is what shapes who you are. And there's some schools where I worked where the teacher's room was a very great place to be, and there are other places where it was not. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah. Feeling that this week.
Okay.
Yeah. Spent a lot of time in one of those.
Yeah. So, I mean, people have to vent and I get it, but so I really had to double down and on my own self-care. And I know people like, oh, self-care and all of this, SEL stuff. I'm like, no, but it's a real thing, right? And the reason why it keeps coming up is because people really need to like dig deep on like, what is it that you actually want? One question I love is, how do you want to feel? Just ask yourself that. When I walk into class today, how do I want to feel? And I knew that I did not want to feel in that moment, like just going page by page. It was sucking the soul out of me. So that's the first thing. But like in terms of like teaching moves, I wish I had your book in front of me, the math activators. Like, what's an example of something in your book? I'll put it back at you. Like, what is a math activator?
I mean, part of the idea behind math activators for us, it was taking all the things that we have learned from various other talented math educators putting stuff out into the world, like number talks and which one doesn't belong, and like
perfect.
Those things allowed us to bring conversation to class in a very non-confrontational way, and a very accepting way, just with curiosity, right? And so for us, part of what we tried to do is make most of it, model pictures, what else?
Visual, Heidi? I mean, like visual in the way.
Everything is not everything, but most things are fairly visual.
Yeah. And the focus too was one of the things that we were seeing in the classrooms that we're working with, the teachers that we were working with. A lot of times even if we have a pictorial image that we're using to lead a number talk, the way that we're describing student thinking is not always pictorial. We often lean into an abstract way of showing, like maybe we'll draw things on a number line, but we wanted to begin to address like what are pictorial ways that we can record student thinking that ties in their way of thinking more close, like that's more closely aligned to the way they're seeing it, so that we can help bridge that gap for students, because they were the 3 areas that we often hear about in middle and high school classes of like, if the kids could only blah, blah, blah. So, and it's one of those areas that, fractions, decimals, integers are one of the spaces where we move sometimes very quickly away from physical and pictorial models into the abstract. And so that was, like, how do we bring that back?
Yeah. And so I think just to summarize that, not that you can't do that, Pam, but I think the 2 things are like conversation, having kids talk to each other about their thoughts, right? And then also then connecting their thoughts to each other, right? So in terms of the teacher's role is trying to be like, okay, here's you and your 3/4 over here, and you and your 75/100, like,
yes.
Let's get those thoughts together, right?
Here's a decimal square. What would it look like if you did your 75/100 and you did 3/4 or something like that? That's what I'm thinking. Or a number line or something. And I think that's it. It's like I heard the word curiosity. I don't know which one of you said it, but like giving students the opportunity to be curious. I mean, these are skills that I feel like need more and more with the advent of AI and all of the things, right? It's like, we've got to give students a chance to be human. And so I think that's what was happening, is that I was Mandy Jansen, who's one of my favorite people on earth.
We love her.
She's amazing. She, in her book, Rough Draft Math, which back there on the shelf, she took this from somebody else. And I think the teacher's name was Olga, but I could be wrong. So don't quote me on this, but there's a portion in the book where it talks about the rights of learners. And so Mandy borrowed it from the teacher who she references in the book. And one of the rights of the learning is, I have the right to change my mind. So every time I give a PD with teachers, I'm like, you have the right to change your mind, and change your mind about your pedagogy, change your mind about the math, change your mind about whatever, And that's okay, because I feel like so often in math class, we go right for like, not we don't, but like, historically, traditionally, we go right for the answer, right? The answer is then once you're done, then there's this relief that it's over. Yeah. But I think what was happening in this classroom and in the classrooms that I've worked in since is we all know the math is happening in the messy middle, right? It's not the beginning, it's not the end. It's like not Steve Wyborny, sorry, Robert Kaplinski's open middle. Yep. So I use a lot of things like that. Open middle, lots of low floor, high ceiling. I used to get the journals I still do, from NCTM, where there's like problems in the middle, or I don't know if they're still in the middle, but comb through those problems and take them and modify them. And a lot of standing around. There was a lot of getting up out of their seats before, non-permanent vertical spaces was a thing. And so we were constantly moving, constantly doing different things, having arguments. Because
that's such a skill, though, right? I mean, it's actually part of the math practices. And I mean, I joke about this all the time. Oh, wouldn't I be a better wife if I had learned this when I was in school, right?
Yes.
But it's true, right? If I had learned to be like a more productive arguer, so to speak, that's been hard to learn over the years. But kids can learn that in math class in a really respectful way. I don't know. I love all of this, what you're saying.
And I thank you. And I think what happens in math class, is to piggyback off of where you're going with this, Molly, I think is like, it's training ground for life. That's what math class actually is. Right. And I think we've kind of pigeonholed it into like, well, that's just for the people who get it. Right. Those are the people who are good at math. And it's like, no. Actually, where else are you going to have an opportunity to like tinker with something? and kind of break it and then fix it. Like, where else are you going to be able to draw I mean, you can like draw a picture, go to art class, and you could draw all pictures of all different trees or whatever. I'm thinking of ridiculous things. But really, math class is the one place where you can play, I guess, in a way that's teaching your brain how to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, the part of it that with the rise of AI, with the rise of all these other things, it is not the quick answer anymore that anyone is looking for. It's, are you willing to tackle large problems, stick with them, and like know that there's not going to be a quick answer, know that there's not going to be like, it takes more than just a machine doing that. Like, we may use that as a tool, but it's the humanity in all of us that needs to bring that to problem solving. And that's the reason we do those things in class. It's not that I need you to memorize the quadratic formula and be able to spit it out. Like that's, I'm not in any way interested in that.
But it's no longer even relevant.
No.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to use the quadratic formula, then you're mostly interested in like what you're doing with the answer.
Yeah. Right.
What does that answer mean in this situation?
Yeah.
And that's what real life has always been, but more so now than ever.
Do you remember when we used to, well, I don't know if you guys did this, but I would say, label your answer.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what was I thinking? Like, yes, the label is important. No, but what we were actually saying is, what does this answer mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we were asking when we said label your work. And
they would lose like 1 point if they didn't label their answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so true. And, a minute ago, one of you said something about like, with the math stories and how we remember things, we don't remember like what happened on a particular problem, but we remember like the Maya Angelou, like people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So true. But I also feel like teachers need this gigantic hug to be like, and you also deserve to be happy. You deserve to feel fulfilled. If that means, listen carefully.
That means going down a really hard road.
That means that your students might want you to get to like jump it off the bridge. Fine. Like if that means that you're going to have students who are going to be wickedly uncomfortable sometimes, like it's holding space for them and being like, I got you. Like, it's okay. It's okay that you're feeling frustration. That's part of learning. And sometimes it's really hard for teachers because we're like, oh my gosh, it is 8:47 and I've got 2 minutes before the bell is going to ring. I got to wrap this up. So I'm just going to wrap it up in a nice, neat bow and everybody goes out the door. My classes, I was constantly like, the kids would be like, well, that's it. Like, what do we do? What do we do? How do we do our homework? I'm like, well, tonight there's no homework. Or the homework is something I would like make up on the spot. Yeah. And I'd be like, we'll do the worksheet another day, maybe. More importantly, and this would happen again after January. I would go down to the cafeteria and I would hear them talking about math at the cafeteria. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, it's working. But that was like, the game of 24 was one of my favorites because their fluency was in the toilet. It was in the toilet. So I was like, all right, we're going to play the game of 24. And I would come down and they would like sneak them they would like steal my cards. I'm like, what are you doing? But I'm like, you can steal my 24 cards. You go right ahead because we didn't figure it out yet. And I'm like, okay, well, you can write it down on your notebook. And like, but we want to have the card. I was like, okay, you can have the card. So anyway, yeah. I just think, it's those little moments that really.
And I think like those little moments are like the little cracks that crack into the negative belief, right? And it's like, oh, you said it earlier. Maybe I can do this, or maybe I'm not terrible at this, or maybe, just maybe, I like math.
Yes.
Yeah. A little.
Yes. At the end of the year, we built a geodesic dome out of newspaper. Have you ever seen this? Okay, so do you know?
I went to a teacher camp. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that. That's so funny. If I brought you into my shed, you would see a giant thing. I went to a teacher camp in Connecticut one summer, and I think we were there for like 2 weeks or something, maybe just a week. I don't know.
Was it Mike Flynn? No, that's that. No.
No.
Okay, anyway, I'm just curious. Okay,
because I bet they do that at Mount Holyoke. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. 2 weeks math.
And it wasn't just a math camp.
Oh, okay.
It was like all subject areas, but of course I did all the math stuff. And literally I came home and I was like, okay, I'm doing an after school program on geodesic domes. And then the last day of school, we would build this geodesic dome outside. So that is cracking me up right now.
That is so funny. So I tell that part of the story because I had a student who, I will not use her real name, but she had a wild first name. And she said, Ms. Brett, I'm going to call my first child Geodesic Dome. I was like, go right ahead, because it'll fit right in with your, like, everybody has their own names, but it was like the fact that she wanted to name her first child Geodesic Dome. I'm hoping she did not, but I don't know. But yes, and they all fit inside of it. I don't know if yours was big enough. They like went inside.
It wasn't big enough for them to fit inside, but it was big enough for some of them to fit.
It was wild. We made it out of newspaper.
Super
it was
fun.
Wild. It was so fun.
Out of newspaper? Mine was made with hoses and PVC pipes.
I wish I had the budget for that. At that time, I had newspaper. That's all I had. No, I had like wooden dowels, and then we would roll the newspaper around the wooden dowel and then pull the dowel out, and we would do it tight enough so it was kind of a little rigid enough, and then we used tape to put it together. And I must have learned it at some, like math. I must have been a math PD. I did not dream that up on my own.
Yeah, no, that's not something that I could have dreamed up on my own either. No. I only got the budget for it because I ran an after school program and that had some funding. So
that's crazy. Also that we have to think about, like, we couldn't afford education in America. Yeah. So I had to like get a grant to buy PVC pipe.
Oh my gosh. And I just collected newspaper from all of my mom reads the New York Times or whatever. I feel like, Mom, save the newspapers.
Right. But I mean, that's the stuff, right? That's the stuff that the kids comes home and says, we made a geodesic dome today. That girl's going to name her child. So, that's the stuff that cracks the shell. Yes. It's those little moments. And yes, did we do some math around the geodesic dome? Yes. But for the most part, it was the end of the year. I waited till the end of the year to do this when we had a little bit more time. But it's the memories, that they had where they were collaborating. And by this time, they knew how to collaborate.
Yeah.
Really well, because they've been doing it all year long. And so I think to answer the question of how do teachers' beliefs shape? It's like every decision you make in a classroom is based on the beliefs that you walk in there with.
Mm-hmm.
So tomorrow I'm talking to pre-service teacher educators, so like college, university professors, and we're going to talk about this a little bit. And I think, you have all these pre-service teachers in your class, and like I talk to teachers all the time. Okay, one more quick story. I was working with kindergarten teachers this October, and the teachers had to sign up for a new platform. And in order to do the new platform, they had to select what their role was, and there were different choices. And so the choices were math teacher, math coordinator, math specialist, math technology person, whatever. They were all these, whatever. And two teachers
didn't think that they were any of those.
She said, there's nothing for me to pick. I said, you have to pick math teacher. And she was like, but I'm not a math teacher. And I'm like, oh, yes, you are. Guess what? Yes, you are. And she was like, I guess I am a math teacher. And I was like, yeah. And then I went into the next classroom where this teacher hadn't heard what the other teacher said. Same exact thing happened. And I was like, now that's a study of two. So it's not really a very, reliable study. But I'm thinking, how many other teachers in this nation who teach kindergarten, first, second grade?
Oh, I would love to know those stats.
Mm-hmm. Right? That I am not a math teacher. So I know that so then there's this next layer about beliefs is how do you get those teachers, right? And it's the same exact like pattern. It's little tiny cracks, little tiny moments where they have an opportunity to see themselves as being able to think and reason and problem solve and persevere and all the mathematics. So it all ties back to the mathematical practices.
Yeah. Really. I think the first thing that that allowed me to become a better math teacher was checking my ego at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did get to have some good professional development when I was first started teaching, and it was as you were describing it, like, but it was with the teachers that I was teaching with, and it was lovely to have a good time while you were working on math problems, and that allowed me to let my guard down a little bit and not feel that I had to be perfect in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So true. So true. Like not be, and I think we have put a lot of pressure on teachers. I think it's coming off, hopefully, but like you are not the answer key.
Correct.
Right? You're not the answer key, right?
Yep.
And it's okay to not know. And it's okay to, if a student comes to you with a question, especially in the upper grades or any grade, but they come to you with a question or an idea or a way of solving something, and you're not quite sure if that works. It's okay to be like, I don't know, let's dig in. Let's see if this works.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love this conversation. You're right. We could talk about this for 4 hours. 4 hours.
So where can people learn more about the work that you're doing?
Oh, so cool. So I love when people connect with me on Instagram. So I basically, with social media, I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. So this one, Instagram, is just at Blue Glasses Math. Oh, and we didn't even talk about the fact that I have a podcast.
Yes.
I don't know.
We referred to it a couple times, but
yeah. So I have a podcast called Blue Glasses Math, which the two of you need to come on. So we'll get that.
Love that.
Get that off. Get that going. But yeah, and the podcast is really, it's a weekly podcast, which is like crazy.
A lot.
Ambitious. It's crazy.
We know that that's a lot. That's why we're not every week.
I know. We'll see. I don't know how long it's going to stick to every week, but you know why it's every week? This is really crazy. All I do is, because people are like, how did Robert Klipinski was on my podcast last week or 2 weeks ago, and like, how do you get like?
I listened to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I sent him a DM on Instagram, and he was like, sure. I'm like, great. Yep. I did meet him in person in Atlanta and NCSM, but that's not why he was on my podcast. He was on my podcast because I sent him a DM. I sent Joe Bowler, same one. And then, I stand on the shoulders of these giants, or these people who come with ideas that I'm like, oh, I could take that idea and run with it. So yeah, so Blue Glasses Math, it's super fun conversations and super authentic, easy. Like, I don't know. I've got some things in my back pocket about how to provide more actionable things for teachers to take away for the fall, but so that's coming soon. So Instagram, definitely, my website is there, but I don't, go to Instagram or go to LinkedIn. Those are the two places where if you send me a DM, I will absolutely answer it.
Awesome. Love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for rounding out our season.
This has been such an honor. So much fun. I love this conversation.
Same. Well, we're wishing you a lot of luck in any of the changes that you're going to make on your podcast.
Yes, we'll be listening in.
Yes, we will.
I'm excited.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thanks for the invitation. I so appreciate it.
Anytime.
Cannot believe that this is what we're saying.
I know.
Insane. This year went by like a flash, and we had more guests this season than we've had in the last few, for sure.
Correct. And we already have some people that we've talked to about next season. And so the great conversations are going to continue happening, and we're really excited for all of those things, but we will be taking a bit of a break this summer.
Yes, we will. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful summer. We are presenting at a free summit that's for math intervention.
But you don't have to be an interventionist.
You don't. No. I think it's aimed for all kinds of teachers of math. And that's June 8th to the 10th. I probably should have put up.
If you Google,
I think you can just Google Math Intervention Summit 2026, And
with Juliana Tapper, and it will come up, and it's virtual, so you do not have to leave the comfort of your home or pool or wherever you are.
Right.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
That sounds good.
Yes.
Sounds good. So there's that. And as always, you can find our book at Didex. And until September, I can't even believe it. We hope that you keep math creative, curious, and inclusive for everyone.
Good night, and have a great summer.
Have a good summer.